Hello and welcome to another video from Our World in the Limelight. My name is Amanda Davey. The books that we refer to in our videos are pretty much all ones that have influenced our thinking or knowledge. Even those we have written ourselves have done that more than we realise. Philosophers refer to Sherlock Holmes for the influence that Conan Doyle's incising and high intellect detective has had on the value of fact-driven logic in solving problems. This can be expanded out to all sorts of problems, not just the solving of crime. This book was given to my young father on his 12th birthday. It is the short stories of Sherlock Holmes. I was probably about 14 when I grabbed it off the bookshelves in a trial run to see what I thought, and the poor man never got it back. I would read it after bedtime before my parents went to bed, developing a technique of turning off the light when I heard their steps on the stairs, waiting while they went to the bathroom and then closed their bedroom door, after which time I had a clear run for hours to read all the stories. How I passed my exams is not clear. It is a well-worn and deeply loved book. Oddly, for someone who never usually reads short stories, I have actually never read the long stories, but of course have seen films of most of these. The short stories have kept me on a path of late night on many occasions, and their influence on my thinking has been intense. Research is an integral part of my work. This can be in all manner of subject areas and very often bounces against received wisdom. But Sherlock Holmes, as well as Poirot, was a fan of facts first. The simple way that this gets put is deductive versus inductive reasoning. Deduction from acquired facts, as opposed to the facts supporting an idea. If you start with a theory, although it is a guide, it is also an impediment, as it can lead to missing out crucial but small clues to the truth. A few years ago, we were working on the book The Lichens of Jersey, and a couple of examples show how knowledge of extra facts can show things to be a bit different to simple interpretations. My written input related to research on the history of the study of lichens in Jersey, and one lichenologist in particular, Charles Dubois Le Balestier. Very little was known of him, so it was really helpful to have access to Ancestry's website through the help of Anna Baghiani Lewis in the Société Jersiaise library. My memories of Sherlock's interest in the study of mud on shoes sort of ties in with my own interest in who knows who. This meant that when we were presented with a letter in Guernsey Museum from Le Balestier to my dear Willie, with the odd story that Victorian decorum meant that a man couldn't write to a married lady directly, we knew something was not right. The idea they had was that since Le Balestier and Mrs. Collins, Louisa, married to the Seigneur of Sark, were lichen hunting friends, he had to be writing to her husband intending the letter for her. Thanks to Ancestry's access to the census of 1871, I knew that Louisa's two sons attended Le Balestier's small school in St. Alban. William Collins was the family name, and Dear Willie turns out to have been the younger William Collins, soon to be the wayward Seigneur of Sark. It is quite surreal that this complex man should have kept a detailed letter about lichens, but presumably at 19 he just flung it across to his mother and said, "Here, you'd better have this, I've got to go and shoot something," as it survived in Louisa's lichen herbarium. The other example relates to the use of Miss and Mrs. A friend of Le Balestier's, when he was Dear Willie's age, was a retired lawyer called Henry Varley, and along with another keen naturalist youngster, they would go scouring the rocks and woods of Jersey, looking for lichens together. Henry was a widower with two stepdaughters. There is no record of him being married after their move to Jersey from Devon, and yet in the Société Herbarium there is a collection donated by Mrs. Varley. In the churchyard at St. Brelard, Henry Varley is buried with both stepdaughters, although after his death they appear to have reverted to their mother's name of Bernier. Since it is pretty obvious whose lichen collection it actually was, we suspect that it was given to the Société by the Misses Varley, the two of them, maybe fairly soon after his death, and this archaic way of referring to two sisters has become confused over time. Unfortunately, there is no accession record to corroborate this fact, but it seems the most likely. In research, in science, in computers, the little things that make you go, "That's odd," so often hold the key to unlocking rich seams of content and solutions to conundrums. We saw these gloves on the washing line of our neighbour, and they are an example of where "that's odd" stays odd. She had basically found a collection of rubber gloves under the stairs, and she wanted to make sure that they were clean so that she could use them in the garden for potting up her plants. Other "that's odds" raise questions that others have asked and potentially have understood. This was in Latvia. It was the entrance to a cave, and all these carvings and sort of pseudo-graffitis obviously have a tradition and a story that is going to be worth knowing. Jersey has a number of different sort of strange concrete outlooks nowadays with park benches on, and they look odd. And of course, Jersey was occupied in the Second World War, and these are the remains of some of the German fortifications. The heritage societies have actually been restoring some of them so that the memory of what the Jersey people went through and the Channel Islands people went through is not forgotten. Orange splats on rocks from lichens. This is a xanthoria on the coast of Jersey, looking out across the bay. Lichens are very much the Sherlock Holmes characters of the natural world. They can tell you so much. This is a very obvious story. This is a clue. This is guano in Chile, not lichenized, but you can see what's been going on with the vultures using that as an outcrop. And here you've got the gull on Jersey using the rocks as a perch. And the Jersey rocks are festooned in wonderful lichens, but where the birds perch, drop their guano, is where the alkali-loving lichens like xanthoria, I think it could be aureola, but it may just be an orange form of Parietina. Liberia pulmonaria is a lichen that grows in areas where the air is clean and clear. It is definitely an air pollution indicator. So it's in the west of Scotland and not at all common in the southeast of England. An awful lot of churches have doorways or archways that have been bricked up, stoned up. It tells of an era where the congregation was larger than it later became, and so in order to keep the church going, they kept the size of it down so that they could heat it and keep it repaired. This particular church at Elstead has a very long and complex story and was abandoned for 100 years. Simple crosses can be where the sites of churches began with visiting priests standing by the cross at a prearranged time, and then as the congregation grew, the church was built near to the cross. This is a very early Norman cross near to a church in the South Downs. That odd is another one for churches. There's a lot of that's odds in churches. This is at Northington in Hampshire, and it's a tiny hamlet with a massive church. And you would think with a church of this scale that the congregation must at some point have been enormous and then suddenly disintegrated. But in actual fact, this church is the result of a form of competitive church building that was going on between the landed gentry in that area in the 19th century. And there are a series of different churches. I think they're all sort of connected by family, and they were competing with each other for fancy churches, ignoring the size of the congregation that they were supporting. They are now very good for weddings, of course. And finally, that's odd. This wall is at the seaside and is obviously scoured, soft sandstone scoured by the elements. Thank you very much for watching this video. Coming up next weekend, we have an event called Indie Author Week UK. We have been involved with this for the past 3 years. Between the 10th and the 17th of June, Simon and I will be doing some talks on our own books and describing how each one has come into print. They are all non-fiction, a variety of different ways of engaging with our world, and their stories are all different. We call this Wine and a Book. Previously they have been on Facebook, but this year we are putting them here as part of our YouTube channel offering. It would be good if you could join us for these. Please like, comment and subscribe, but we do also thank you for watching for what we have been doing. All the very best from us both. Thank you.